This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Vice President George Bush testified under oath today, questioned in private for the independent special prosecutor's criminal investigation of the secret sending of U.S. missiles to the Ayatollah Khomeini. For his part, President Reagan today ducked and dodged questions about Bush's role. Bush's own refusal to give a full public accounting continues dogging him in Iowa. Bush trails Bob Dole in the latest Iowa polls and is now trying to call Dole's financial ethics into question. Bob Schieffer is in winter-cold Iowa tonight, where the campaign heat is rising. Bob?
Dan, the Vice President's office confirmed tonight that the Vice President was indeed questioned earlier today by members of the Special Prosecutor's staff. The statement says the Vice President met voluntarily, answered all questions completely, and quotes the Special Prosecutor's office as emphasizing that the Vice President was merely a witness, is not, repeat, under investigation. All this today as the Vice President also released all of his income tax returns dating back to 1973. Pile of documents that runs more than 270 pages. Vice President is challenging all of the other candidates to do the same, but thus far the comment on the campaign trail is about Iran-Contra. Today in Cleveland, the President was asked if the Vice President ought to give more detail.
Everybody knows everything about Iran-Contra.
Easy for him to say he's not running anymore, but the Vice President is, and everywhere he's been going in Iowa and New Hampshire, Iran-Contra questions have dogged him.
Some of this is classified, and we've provided everything asked for.
Iowa is fast taking shape as a two-man race between Bush and Republican leader Bob Dole, and it is getting meaner by the hour. Dole headed east today to get the endorsement of New York's Republican Senator Al D'Amato. But as that was happening, Bush's people continued to say it may be Dole, not Bush, who has something to hide. Not on Iran-Contra, but on personal finances. They challenged Dole again to release his income tax returns. And all weekend they have suggested possible irregularities in one of Mrs. Dole's blind financial trusts. Desperation politics, says Dole's main man in Iowa.
When you're behind in a critical state like Iowa, you pull out all stakes. You detract from the real issues of the campaign.
In New York today, Dole said he's just begun to fight.
As far as I'm concerned, the Iran-Contra affair is a dead issue. I think the question is credibility.
With Dole now holding a substantial Iowa lead, Bush's people are going bare knuckle and going directly at Dole's message here, that he's just regular folks.
Dole for president, one of us.
If and when Senator Dole reveals his tax returns for the last 10 years or more, makes them public, that Iowa Republicans will find that Bob Dole really is not one of us.
So it goes in the increasingly bitter contest, and says Dole's man Grassley, maybe it's gone far enough already.
Cool it just a little bit.
Including Bob Dole?
Cool it just a little bit.
Good advice, perhaps, but the expectation is only the weather here is going to cool off. This race is going to get hotter. Both men simply have too much at stake. Dan?
Thanks, Bob. In a sometimes tearful Des Moines Register weekend interview getting national attention today, Gary Hart says if elected, he, quote, won't be the first adulterer in the White House, end quote. Hart is the frontrunner among Democrats in Iowa, has been ever since plopping back into the race a month ago. Hart still refuses to answer most questions about his character and accusations of womanizing. Our chief political correspondent, Bruce Morton, is also in Iowa tonight to report on what makes the Hart rerun campaign tick.
The candidate is outside Gate 1, Portsmouth Naval Shipyard on the New Hampshire-Maine line. 6:30 a.m., wind chill minus 25. Sometimes there are a few hands to shake.
There's a new idea, the New Hampshire primary in July.
Yeah. He is almost alone. Reporters, a few volunteer aides. Alone, the guerrilla fighter, the long shot. It is a favorite role.
Gary Hart, nice to see you.
I think Gary's in his glory.
There's a romantic, he sees it as a little bit of the Marlboro Man syndrome.
He said only the issues matter, not his name nor his age last time, not Donna Rice this time. But he speaks of the issues dryly. Fancy words, sparse applause, lots of numbered points.
I think the federal government ought to do two things. Two parts of homelessness.
Keep three other words in mind. Invest, reform, and engage.
He is more emotional talking about what he says the campaign isn't about, Gary Hart. Sometimes idealism.
Because political candidates come and go. But I believe the struggle for justice is eternal.
Sometimes with what sounds like arrogance. The country needs me, not vice versa.
We are back in the state to ask for your help, not for ourselves, but for our nation. This is a test of the citizenship of the people of Iowa.
He wants very badly to go through his life having done it his way.
I don't think you can seek the presidency of the United States without, I wouldn't say arrogance, I would say audacity.
I am an obscure man, Hart said once. I will never reveal myself. In the Senate, he was a loner, known more for ideas than for actual legislation.
Didn't want to have big meetings and try to build a coalition. Either it was right on principle and it should fly, or it wasn't going to make it.
But this year has revealed much of the man who wanted to stay hidden. Hart courts the crowds more now, campaigning very much as a man with a wife, touching strangers more than 4 years ago. The crowds are mostly friendly, but they are there to see a celebrity, a star, as much as to see a candidate. Hart signs a lot of autographs. Most candidates don't. Questions are polite. Few ask about Donna Rice. Perhaps as a substitute, many ask about the $1 million debt Hart still owes from his 1984 campaign.
My critics seem to think that my debt's worse than other people's debts. I paid off about 75%.
Still, people do remember last spring's monkey business. It's why Hart is a star as well as a candidate.
I think the great presidents have been those who have confined their mistakes and sins, if you will, to their own personal lives.
How much will it matter? James David Barber studies the presidency and the men who seek it.
We're talking about someone can kill us all or someone who can ruin our lives. Now, let's find out about that person before he gets the job. Not how good an actor he is, and not how he can imagine what someday he might do. What has he already done? How has he already performed? And does he know what's going on in the real world? Or is he living in some dreamland like the Land of Oz?
Serious candidate or hot celebrity, living in the real world or in glamour and glitz? As Hart keeps saying, the voters will decide, but for now, he is once again doing it his way. Dan?
Bruce and Bob Schieffer, do the Democrats now find themselves overshadowed by this suddenly heating up shooting match between Bush and Dole?
Well, it got to the point today where Governor Dukakis of Massachusetts, Dan, suggested that Bush and Dole stop shooting at each other and start addressing issues. But no, I think the Democrats out here are concerned with their own affairs. They're wondering how Hart's going to do, how the other campaigns will react to him. And we'll find that out, I suppose, when all of them, including Hart, get together for a debate later this week. As for the Republicans, I think they're glad to get a little attention for a change. This race has been pretty flat out here. Suddenly there's some excitement, Dan.
Bruce and Bob, thanks. And let's hope it gets a little warmer out there. It was a wild and woolly Wall Street roller coaster ride today, but the Dow Jones Industrial Average finally finished the session up, almost 34 points. That came as relief to nervous investors who feared another Black Monday after the Dow Friday took its third steepest dive ever. But in Cleveland today, President Reagan expressed his reasons for possible concern about the future of the American economy.
I don't think the signs of recession are there. I'll tell you what does frighten me. When I see sometimes in the media all this great emphasis in quoting people about pessimism and that, well, this looks like there's a recession coming, that could bring on bad times and a recession.
Another former top aide to President Reagan went on trial today in Washington. Criminal charges. Mr. Reagan's former top political advisor inside the White House, Lynn Nofziger, is accused of illegally trying to make money off his old government contacts when he went into the private lobbying business. NASA now says the space shuttle could go up July 15th. The space agency said today it will get around the fact that a critical booster rocket nozzle part failed its latest test by using a backup design. The shuttle fleet has been grounded since the Challenger exploded 2 years ago this month. And still to come tonight on the CBS Evening News, Mike Wallace with the latest on terrorism in Europe. Bob Simon in Gaza. Israel takes on the revolt of a whole people, even the very young. And correspondent David Browning on New Year's resolutions and those crowded classes.
It took 2,000 years, but a revolutionary discovery is changing the way men think about coloring their gray hair. It's called Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, shampoo out. Your gray is blended away, leaving your natural-looking color. 5 minutes. Here, look at me. Just for Men leaves your hair looking healthy and fuller, and it won't fade or wash out. Just for Men, in the men's hair care section.
It's Red Lobster's new Seafood Trios.
1, 2, 3 seafood favorites on one dish, 3 different tastes, each one delicious.
7 all-new Seafood Trios starting at $6.95.
Lobster leads our supreme trio, followed by fried shrimp from the sea. Oh my, those scallops make this platter sure to please. At Red Lobster, good things come in threes.
And now, Friday and Saturday only, shrimp and steak trio just $10.95.
Peter, do we ever cover steak with ketchup? Hamburger is steak, chopped steak, so we use
A1 steak sauce.
It makes hamburgers taste like
Steak burgers.
Don't cover it. Discover it with A1.
When it's cold and rough outside, try something warm and creamy inside. Cream of wheat hot cereal and Instant Mix-N-Eat. 2 smooth, delicious ways to come in from the cold.
Israeli civilians joined the violence in the occupied West Bank today. The Israeli army said 2 Jewish settlers opened fire at Arabs who were throwing rocks. 1 teenager was killed and another wounded. Israeli soldiers shot and killed another protester in the Gaza Strip. The official death toll now is 31, with no end in sight. Bob Simon is our man there.
Gaza seemed to be careening even further out of control today. Anarchy was breaking out all over. Every tired street was either full of riot or completely deserted. The entire spectrum of the Israeli Defense Force is now on the battleground, infantry and armor, and for the first time, Israel's tough internal security force on the front line for everyone to see. When it all began more than a month ago, the Israelis called it a riot, the Palestinians an insurrection. Many on both sides are now calling it something else.
It's a war. It's a real war between the Israeli army and between the people.
The Israeli command is beginning to acknowledge that its iron fist policy hasn't worked and that they're running out of new punishments and new ideas. They've tried detentions, deportations, curfews, mass arrests, and other forms of collective punishment, and all they're coming up with is more of the same. The army treats everyone as if they're the enemy and thereby risks making them enemies. People really minding their own business, like this taxi driver, are forced to clean up roadblocks. This truck was hijacked by the army, the driver told to take down a Palestinian flag which militants had raised. He complained he couldn't do it. Soldiers confiscated his ID card, told him to try harder. When he did, he was bombarded by kids up the block. Neutrality is hardly an option anymore. There are no more sidelines to sit on. Everyone's involved.
They are going to push right through. So they're not going to give up. And the more Palestinians are killed, the more violent they will get.
Schools are closed, kids are being taught in the street. The next generation being trained for life in the Middle East, where there are problems which have no solutions and wars which nobody wins. Bob Simon, CBS News, Gaza.
West German police today arrested a young German woman suspected of planting the bomb that killed 2 U.S. servicemen at a Berlin discotheque in 1986. The United States blamed that attack at the time on Libya, and 10 days later launched air raids against 2 Libyan cities. 60 Minutes correspondent and co-editor Mike Wallace is here tonight with more about today's arrest and the still open question of the Libyan connection. Mike?
Christina Endrichkeit, a 27-year-old West German, was arrested today in Lübeck, West Germany, and she was flown to Berlin. German officials allege that she planted the bomb in La Belle discotheque 2 years ago. The explosion killed 2 Americans and wounded more than 200 people in the nightclub. German officials have tied her to 2 Palestinian terrorists, both of whom are now in prison for other acts of terror, and those 2 men are said to have had stronger ties to Syria than to Libya. But the U.S. used that disco bombing as its reason for bombing Libya. Today, the State Department reaffirmed its belief that Libya and Muammar Gaddafi were at least partly responsible for the disco bombing.
While the information which led to the arrest of Christine Endrichkeit may suggest the involvement of another country, as I said, it in no way contradicts the evidence about Libya.
And former Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger told me the same thing this morning, that Washington's belief that Gaddafi was involved has not changed. What has changed is that the Reagan White House is now downgrading Gaddafi as a terrorist threat. A new government report indicates the Libyan leader has lost much of his troublemaking potential.
The Reagan administration having, if you will, committed itself to a war against Libya, now declares itself the victor. It says, well, Gaddafi is a lesser figure in the Middle East. Well, he is a lesser figure. He was a lesser figure to begin with.
What is the perception of Muammar Gaddafi today in the Middle East, in the Arab world?
They know that Gaddafi is basically somewhat insane.
President Reagan had that same view of Gaddafi 2 years ago when he announced economic sanctions against Libya.
I find he's not only a barbarian, but he's flaky.
Today, the State Department extended those economic sanctions for another year. They say Gaddafi may be down, but he is not out. A view shared by terrorism expert Paul Wilkinson.
He is considerably weakened economically and militarily, but we must remember that he is still involved in terrorism. He's still supplying terrorist organizations around the world.
Meantime, over the weekend, Gaddafi made news not for funding terrorists, but for paying a bankrupt West Germany hockey team $900,000 to advertise his green book, his writings on their team jerseys. He is a strange man, Dan.
Mike, no one doubts that. But you made a lot of calls today on all sides of this issue. In the final analysis, how dangerous is Gaddafi now?
Well, President Reagan said it. He is flaky. But he is a flake with a $5 billion annual income from his oil, so you don't dare turn your back on him.
Mike, thanks. Good to have you with us. Dan. The Soviet Party newspaper Pravda said today that Soviet troops could start pulling out of Afghanistan on the 1st of May, but only if the United States and Pakistan cut off their aid to Muslim rebels. In Washington, a State Department spokesman said it's up to the Russians to make the first move, setting a firm date for withdrawal. The Soviet Union announced today that it will take part in this year's Olympic Games in South Korea. This clears the way for U.S. and Soviet athletes to face each other in the Summer Games for the first time since 1976. The U.S. boycotted the 1980 Games because of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The Russians retaliated by staying home in '84.
Constipation is disaster, and that's the honest truth.
Jean Wright talks about constipation and Dulcolax laxatives.
I can depend on Dulcolax because it takes care of my constipation problems in a gentle, easy way. My doctor suggested that I try Dulcolax, and I did, and I was very happy.
Dulcolax suppositories can work in 15 minutes to 1 hour. Dulcolax tablets predictably overnight.
I wake up in the morning, and I get complete relief. Dulcolax brightens my day.
The 1988 Cutlass Sierra. Season after season, year after year, Cutlass Sierra is an automobile that lives on almost every street in America, which says a lot about America's sense of value and a lot about Oldsmobile.
Look, it's still here after 20 years. Michael loves Sarah.
Nothing's changed. You're as beautiful today as that day I proposed.
I take care of myself.
She eats right, exercises, and takes Geritol Complete, with nearly twice the iron of ordinary supplements. More vitamins and minerals combined.
Those were good years. These are the best years of my life.
So, you marry me?
Again? Yes.
Geritol Complete, for the best years of your life.
A federal judge in Chicago today ordered the Amoco Corporation to pay $85 million for the oil spill 10 years ago caused by the wreck of the Amoco Cadiz. The tanker broke up during a fierce storm in the English Channel and spilled tons of crude oil onto the shore of France. The judge said the award was the largest ever in a pollution case, but it was only a small fraction of the damages claimed by the French government, hotel owners, and fishermen. Both sides say they will appeal. Nearly everybody agrees that the quality has gone up in Ford Motor Company cars, but the U.S. Transportation Department was petitioned today to order Ford to recall more than 1.5 million of its cars. Deborah Potter has investigated accusations that the back seat safety belt in these cars may maim and kill in a crash.
13-year-old Jimmy Garrett was riding in a Ford Escort when it plowed head-on into a tractor-trailer. Jimmy is paralyzed. His friend Chris Gaburi was killed, but the driver and front seat passenger suffered only broken bones. The boys were in back, wearing their seatbelts.
How many more people are buckling their children in the backseat of Escorts thinking that they're protecting their children? And they're not. It might as well be a loaded gun in the backseat of a car.
The Garretts sued Ford and won more than $3 million in damages. Today, they asked the government to force the recall of 1.7 million Ford Escort and Mercury Lynx cars to fix the rear lap belts.
They know how to do it better. They're capable of doing it better. And until someone forces them to do it, they're not going to do it.
What's at issue is this elastic strap, which keeps the buckle from slipping under the seat. Safety experts say it keeps the belt too high across the waist instead of the hips, increasing the risk of serious injury. The remedy is simple, but Ford says the seatbelts are safe. And the company argues that in accidents like the one in this crash test, no seatbelt system can be expected to prevent injuries.
You don't run into 18-wheelers at excessively high closing speeds and expect that whatever you have in there is going to keep you safe from harm.
The severity of the crash was not what caused the death and injury of these two children. It was the lap belt.
The government will study the charges, and while Ford still insists there's nothing wrong with the lap belt system, rear shoulder belts will be installed in all Ford cars by 1991. Deborah Potter, CBS News, Washington.
The U.S. Supreme Court today rejected attempts to make the federal government compensate people who live downwind from the open-air nuclear testing of the 1950s and 60s in Nevada. The justices refused to revive a suit by more than 1,000 people who claimed the U.S. government was negligent, never warning them of the radioactive fallout danger. I. Rabi, a Nobel physics laureate who helped develop both radar and the atomic bomb, died today in New York after a long illness. I. Rabi, a former chairman of the physics department at Columbia University, was 89. And Congressional Medal of Honor winner Gregory Pappy Boyington, who shot down 28 Japanese planes during World War II, died today in Fresno, California. Pappy Boyington, who died of cancer, was 75.
Total oatmeal? It's new. Well, we like old-fashioned Quaker oats, right, George?
Mother, Total Oatmeal has 100% of the daily allowance of vitamin A.
We've been getting that all along.
No, we haven't. 100% of C.
Been getting that all along.
No, we haven't. 100% of 9 vitamins and iron.
No, we haven't.
Total Oatmeal has 10 times the vitamin nutrition of old-fashioned Quaker oats.
Good work.
Total Oatmeal, the vitamin nutrition you thought you were getting all along.
Why cook in oil, margarine, or butter? All-natural Pam adds only 1/10 the fat and calories and keeps food light and delicious. Pam Cooking Spray, because how you cook is as important as what you cook.
Headache, pressure, and congestion, all together major symptoms of sinus complex. You need to feel better, but not drowsy. You need Sinutab 2 No Drowsiness Formula, so you feel altogether better and awake.
It's a brand new day. Now here's a brand new coffee to get you on your way.
New Taster's Choice Colombian Select with half the caffeine.
Get a full cup of flavor with only half the caffeine. The kind of coffee you'll savor from all Colombian beans.
New Colombian Select, rich, real coffee with just half the caffeine.
A full cup of flavor, only half the caffeine.
New Taster's Choice Colombian Select.
Joe Clark, the embattled New Jersey high school principal whose no-nonsense policies won him support from the Reagan administration, today said he will probably go to work for the president later this year. Clark made that announcement after reaching agreement with prosecutors to resolve a contempt citation. The Paterson, New Jersey School Board charged that Clark chained school doors shut during school hours in violation of fire regulations. Clark, also in trouble with the school board for his mass suspension of some students, said he chained shut the doors to keep out drug dealers and other criminals. Well, let's deal with it. You may be feeling guilty as you look back on 1988, all 11 days of it. It's not that you've done anything so terribly wrong, but it may be you've made some promises that you're having trouble keeping. Well, that's the case with a lot of us. But be of good cheer. You are not alone, as David Browning has found out.
Another new year, a
America rang out the old and immediately began thinking about its waistline.
I've been with Weight Watchers for about 3 years now, and I have lost 165 pounds on this program, and I'd like some...
Hundreds of thousands headed for Weight Watchers, Smoke Enders, the Health Club, all the places where your dreams and your New Year's resolutions can come true.
Joined a gym, came to Weight Watchers, and going to do it all at once.
It is the time when America decides to get serious, slim down, shape up, stop smoking, undo the sins of the holiday season.
Everywhere you went, everybody had, little goodies, and people were bringing you cookies at work, and there were luncheons, and a party after a party after a party.
You lose weight 20% faster than with the old plan.
On the first business day of 1988, Weight Watchers nationwide logged 25,000 calls in 4 hours.
Going through withdrawal is really not as difficult as you may think.
At Stop Smoking seminars, there's not an empty seat in the house.
Okay, elbows out, elbows in.
The health clubs, the Y, the gyms are all packed.
I've been feasting a lot over the holidays, and my wife's a gourmet cook, so that's part of the reason.
I'm going to lose this 15 pounds before my child goes to first grade.
Trouble is, the best of New Year's intentions sometimes get lost round about February.
I make good resolutions, and I break them almost immediately.
And that's why all this activity, as Ed Viramontes of the Y observes, will last
for about a month, and then it tends to die out.
But in the meantime, it's standing or swimming room only. And the New Year's resolutions just keep on coming.
I'm going to live another year. My pacemaker is working for 10 years now, and it's going to last another year.
As they say, it's never too late. David Browning, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. See you tomorrow. Good night.
I get up early to capture the morning light. But sometimes my arthritis pain catches me first. I used to take aspirin or Tylenol, but today it's Advil. Advil contains a non-prescription strength of the medicine in the prescription brand Motrin. You know, just one Advil is as effective as 2 regular aspirin. That's important to me. And Advil didn't upset my stomach. It gives me hours of relief from minor arthritis pain. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Splish splash, I was taking a bath. Long about a Saturday night. Gloved up, got a clog in my tub. So I jumped out and fixed it up right. Just poured in liquid Drano, soon the clog was all gone. If they call it liquid Drano, baby, no, it's real strong. Yipes, yipes, and it won't hurt your pipes. Metal pipe or plastic, liquid Drano's just fantastic. Now I'm splishing and a splashing.
Liquid Drano, the liquid strong enough to be called Drano.
This is Brother Rice. He hasn't spoken a word in exactly 20 years. So I brought him this new FTD Celebrate bouquet. The flowers, colorful bowl, and fun box make it a celebration worth shouting about, right? Send the new FTD Celebrate bouquet.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For indigestion, heartburn, and gas, nobody does as much as Malox Plus. Dose for dose, it neutralizes more than any regular strength antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as Malox Plus.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, Defense Secretary Frank Carlucci back from the Persian Gulf.
Also, we'll remember 1968 on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Next on Eyewitness News, a day for presidential politics in Nashville. Jesse Jackson and Pat Robertson both made appearances. We'll tell you what they had to say. And at the Metro Airport, the weapons authorities find during passenger security checks. We'll have these stories and the latest on the weather, the road conditions tonight, and snow watch. All of that and more next on Eyewitness News.
We share the spirit of love.